All right, then I will go ahead and call to order our work session for the Greater Albany Public Schools Board. And on November 4th, 2020 at 6:32 p.m. And if you will all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Chris. And then I'm getting it out of that, yes. I am going to lead in the board book. Just there's one document that we've included there for discussion tonight. So as you all know, tonight's discussion, we have 2 hours, although I'm not even thinking it will take us an hour, I hope, if that even. Basically, we're going to discuss having a vacancy on the board and our process that we want to undertake to get that filled. I put the policy on here, the BBE policy, which is vacancies on the board. I didn't include the policy here, but that policy we have is last updated in 2001. And that is the one that we are utilizing. I did have a conversation with Kristen Miles at OSBA to talk through what options we might have. As you all know, it's an election year coming up for us in June. And so we have a very short period of time to fill a vacancy because the position that Pat was in is one that is up for re-election in June. And it was one of our at-large positions from before. So by the time we get through this process, get someone on board, we're looking at maybe 5 to 6 months worth of time commitment from the person that we bring on board. In the past, most of you were here when we had a board member leave previously, and then Pat was brought in through a pretty thorough application process that we went through because it was fairly early in the term still, and we had a lot of that term left. We do have a couple of different options for how we can go about filling a board vacancy. We can do a direct appointment, and we can do everything from appointing through a formal application process. As you all know, the application processes typically take quite a bit longer. And because we're on a short time frame, I discussed this with OSBA, and the recommendation that I'm bringing forward today is what they would recommend as well as what I would recommend as your board chair. But obviously we're here to discuss these things and see if you all agree or if you feel like there's other things we should consider. So initially, when you look at this process, we do have still a 20-day time period that whatever option we choose to do, we have to, in a sense, post it or put it out there for 20 days as an open position that we are going to fill. We're recommending that we do letters of interest. The people who are interested in filling any vacancies have to live in the district, be registered to vote. And then we as a board would need to decide what it is we want them to include in their letters of interest, or if we just want to say that you can submit a letter of interest and leave it up to the applicants to determine what they feel like is appropriate to include in a letter of interest. We can talk about that a little bit later. Again, then we would put that out there for 20 days. Once we receive those letters, we would distribute them to the board members for individual review. Again, I'm going to go through this as a recommendation that was made to us, but we can talk about each of these pieces along after. So they would be distributed for each individual board member to review. And then at the following board meeting, the board will appoint a new director by majority vote of the quorum. To do that process, a motion would be made by a board member. We can have, we're checking on whether we can have more than one name brought forward at the same time. So it isn't a situation of, oh, I speak up first, so the person I'm wanting to nominate comes in first. But even if not, we would take one motion at a time made by a board member. We would discuss that person that's nominated by the board member in that motion. Or persons if it's more than one, and we'll be able to discuss, why it is we think that person would be good, any concerns that we have, and then the board will vote for that person. If there's more than one and we're allowed to have more than one, we'll put forth one person first, but everyone would know who the people are that are being nominated so that where your vote might lie. If there's one that we put forward, we would vote based on that one nomination, and yay would be if it's yes, it's your top choice, no if it's not a top choice for you. If there's not a majority vote in favor of that person, we would move on to hear another motion, or if in the sense that there's multiples, we would vote on another person in line. That will continue until we have a majority vote. We can also, if we don't come up with a majority vote, renominate a candidate to re-vote again if we feel like that is necessary by the end. We'll continue that, and then the person having the majority vote would be appointed to the vacant position that evening and would finish out the remainder of the term. If they're at the meeting, they could be sworn in at that meeting immediately, is my understanding. If they're not present, then we would bring them back or ask them to come back at the following meeting. But we would obviously, for those that provided letters of interest, let them know that we would be appointing someone at the meeting that we intend to do that at. My guess would be at this point, that would be our December meeting. It wouldn't be able to be before that with the 20-day time for the submissions to come in. One of the things that we need to talk about, and I think we can do tonight, is to come up with what we determine is our ideal attributes for a board member. We would use that when we're looking over those letters of interest, and then we would also use that in evaluating who we feel like we would want to nominate or appoint to the position. Those attributes you could have all of or some of or whatever, but it was just an opportunity for us to talk about what we are looking for or what would be beneficial to have in who we're looking to appoint to the board. Those attributes don't have to be provided. We can talk about whether we provide that in advance or not, but it's what we would use to make our decisions. Eric.
On mine's more on not the person but the practice.
Yeah.
Is this going to be all virtual?
Yes. Yeah. And we're in a situation where we would not, in this particular situation, if we're appointing, we wouldn't be interviewing. So we're not necessarily going through a process of having anybody have to interview or anything like that virtually.
Sure.
So
that was my question. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's kind of the recommendation, and most of that is based on the time issues, the fact that it is within our purview to appoint someone to the position, and we would have basically a minimum of just letters of interest to review. Now we could, if we choose to, go anywhere from there on up to what we did the last time, where we did a formal interview process and requested applications with specific questions, and then we had interviews, and we had a scoring system and all of those different things. We can kind of do either end or everything in between, but this was one of the recommendations that OSBA and for myself I feel like would be most appropriate given the circumstances that we have right now. So first off, I guess my question is, what questions do you guys have? Concerns do you have? Do you think this is a good process? We can always tweak things within it, but is the general concept one that you guys would want to do, or do you want to kind of look at something different? I'll just go ahead, Jen, and then I'll just kind of go through everyone, make sure that everybody has a chance to kind of weigh in for this one. Yeah.
This overall process sounds fine to me. I think it's important for us to fill a vacancy and to do so as soon as possible. Just various points. I think we have used him in the past, and certainly it doesn't have to be Randy, but I think it would be helpful to have somebody there who could serve as a moderator for us and just kind of help walk us through this process while we're in it. Also, what is going to be our process for breaking a tie? Because that was a problem last time.
Yeah, and I think that when we say, you know, it's we'll continue until we have a majority vote. So basically, like we said, if there's, let's say we have 4 people send in letters of interest, and we get in the meeting, and you know, somebody nominates one, not everybody, we don't have a majority vote for one, they nominate another one, we don't have a majority vote for that one, somebody else nominates someone, and we just don't have it. We would go back through again and nominate until somebody feels like they're willing to budge and say that that's their second choice or their third choice or whatever, and they're willing to go ahead and vote for that person in that process. It's tough because I think in this given situation with a normal board of 5 and we're down one and filling a vacancy, we always run that risk of having a 2-2 throughout the process. And there really isn't an easy way to do that. So I would think at that point, if it really came down to a 2-2, we would have to maybe delay it and come back to the table and say, what else do we want to consider? Do we want to do interviews? Do we want to do something additional at that point to try to get, you know, a change in what people's interests are, to be able to vote differently? But even doing that, we could end up in the same situation again. So, yeah.
Okay.
So if you have ideas, I am certainly open to hearing what those are. I'm hoping we don't get to that point again.
Oh, me too. Me too.
You never know. You never know. Yeah. I think it's a little different this time. I mean, I will say this. It is a little different this time from the perspective of 2 of our board members that are here now were very new then, for sure, right? And so some of it too is just the amount of knowledge you have about what's necessary for the board, what's the best fit for the existing board members as a team. Some of those things I think were hard for us to consider the first go around necessarily because we hadn't all been together for very long. And so some of that played in, I'm sure. I think all of us have a little bit better understanding of kind of what's going on right now, what our strategic goals are going forward, the things that we hope to accomplish, who might be able to fill those shoes best. And again, it is a short-term filling, you know, this vacancy is a short period of time. We can talk, I think our next step tonight is to talk about things we're interested in. You know, are we looking for somebody who may be interested in running for this position and being here long-term? If so, it's a great opportunity for somebody to start getting in and getting their feet wet and learning from some of the other board members who are up for re-election and may or may not be here, you know, later to assist with some of that. Is it, you know, an opportunity for us to, you know, would we see somebody who's previously been a board member here or at a different district? Would we, you know, would that be beneficial? You know, I don't know. I mean, there's lots of things we can throw out there as being helpful, I think, in different ways. That we can talk
They may
about.
realize like they don't like it.
Huh?
They may realize they don't like it.
But this is true too.
It's a good
And you
learning
know what?
opportunity.
That's perfectly okay. I mean, it's an opportunity for somebody for sure, who has an interest, isn't really sure what it's about, to really come in and say, yes, I can help out for a short period of time. I'm interested, but I'm not sure. There's a lot going on right now, obviously, so they would get their feet wet quickly. Yeah. Michael, did you have any other
Yeah.
thoughts?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So just getting back to, I totally endorse this process as outlined. I do have help me to understand this in terms of process. So if we come to that meeting, I guess it would be the December meeting, and somebody nominates somebody. I mean, so like, what if the first person nominated has a majority? Is that it? Are we done? Even if, like, say I had someone ready to go, and that wasn't my person, but I was outvoted. Is it just over with at that point?
Yep. It would be the first person that gets a majority vote. Which is
yeah, I get that, but so it would be a matter. So it would come down to, what I'm saying is, just for being really practical, who was recognized first to make a motion.
Correct, and that's one of the reasons why. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I put in here. I'm still trying to verify if we can accept more than one nomination.
Okay.
At the
gosh,
beginning.
I would.
Yes.
I can live with not having my person, but for anybody, I just, if it was just a matter of who got raised their hand first, that would leave a kind of a sour taste in my mouth. It was just, so anyway, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's exactly why I'm going to ask that question. And
Sure.
I'm hopeful, and I think if what I heard correctly before when I was having the conversations with OSBA is that you could have people, one person make a motion for somebody, and then in your discussion have somebody else say, but I would like to make a motion for this other person. And then we just take them in that order so that we all know these two people are being nominated. And then when we go through the vote, we would do the first person nominated first, and who the other people are that have been nominated, whether it's 2 or 3 or whatever at that point.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have more than 4 nominees because there's only 4 of us. So
right. No, that's fine. That I get. Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
But so anyway,
and unfortunately, if that isn't something we can do, and we do one at a time, and it is based on who gets their hand up first and says, hey, I want to make a nomination or a motion. If you as a board member, that isn't, what I would say is, if that isn't your top choice, then you shouldn't vote for them, and see what happens.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Absolutely. It's just, you could see where, I don't, you could see person gets their hands up, 3 votes, we're done. And mine didn't even get a discussion.
Right.
I guess it'd be on me maybe during the discussion to say, hey, before we finish this up. But anyway.
And that's why we would have the discussion period for sure.
Okay. So I see. So you will have a chance to, during, if worst case scenario, to bring it up in discussion that, hey, I have, okay. That answers that question. So I just endorse this process, and
I will,
I think it's great.
On behalf of the group, if you guys are on board with this either direction, I will get that clarification from OSBA first. But then this will be something we want to put out there. So if we are, we would provide, a posting or whatever that says, hey, we're accepting letters of interest for our vacant board position, and give the details of that position and how long it would be. And then we need to be able to provide our process of what we're going to do. And then we would have that in writing. And so we would finalize that once I have a chance to talk to OSBA before we post it. And then from there, we just wait the 20 days until we can get those letters in, and then we'll get them sent out. So it sounds like everybody's okay with that. Go ahead, Eric. Yeah.
So I know you can't make any decisions in executive session, but is there any discussion about potential candidates in executive session allowed?
No, and we're not really in an executive session. I mean, if we're
Well, I
talking,
mean, you can always go in. Yeah.
we could do an executive session if we wanted to, but I think we probably have, each of us may know people that might be good applicants or have heard from people. And I guess as board members, what we've done in the past is we haven't discussed who we would like to see apply or go through the turning in the letters. But what we have done is just have board members be aware of the fact that, it's good to let people know that that it's out there, the position is vacant, and that they're requesting the letters of interest. And that would be the same for, any of us to just be,
Yeah, I'm just curious because, I mean, that, sometimes, because discussion is important for selecting an elected official, but sometimes people can be pursued or people
From my
can take
understanding, it all has to happen in public session.
It
Okay.
does. That's correct.
Yeah. So we, all of the discussion we would have to be in public session. So again, I think that that's a lesson learned, from past experiences, but also just all of us learning, what that looks like, that, those sessions are supposed to be transparent out there, but then we also want to be understanding of the fact that
absolutely. Yeah. And that's where I'm going, is I don't want to offend anyone as
Right.
you go through their resume or anything.
And that's hard. And and I think that's where if we limit it to where, we're looking over the information provided, and really what we're trying to discuss more than anything is who our top person is we're nominating and why, then it focuses more on that positive aspect of why we're looking at that person. And for the most part, that should be the discussion. And then you talk, if someone else has somebody else they feel is a good candidate too, they can put forth why they think that person is a good candidate without having to, negate any of the others. And so I think
we want to focus on the strengths of other candidates rather than any kind of
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I'm good with it, ma'am.
Okay. So it sounds like everybody's okay with the process with those few tweaks, if I can get answers to those couple questions. Were there any specific details about this process that anyone is concerned with if we were to put it out? And that would be true for Melissa or Lisa or anyone at this point. Is there anything you would be concerned with going out?
I'm not concerned. I do have a question about timeline.
Yeah.
So we need to advertise for 20 days. So we're looking at posting this when?
Well, I would love to say like beginning of next week, if we can get it done and I can get answers to the questions that we might have. If we can get something out Monday or even Tuesday of next week.
And does the holiday would count towards those 20 days? Just wondering.
So in a typical, for me, in a typical hiring setting, if we've posted a position, holidays count, it's just 20, it's not business days, it's 20 calendar days. And I think that people, whether it's over a holiday or not, have an opportunity to work on that letter and submit it. I would say if our submission deadline fell on a holiday day, then we would want to maybe consider moving it and doing it after. But we are looking at the end of November, basically, by the time we would be able to have those. And then we need how much time we think we need to go through those. And then being able to be prepared for a meeting, whether we do it at our regular board meeting in December or we tried to schedule a separate meeting just for that. We just want to be able to let people know in advance, I think, what meeting we intend to have that appointment done at, so that they can be present if they want to be for that meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I think we could maybe have everything ready a little bit sooner than our December meeting, but at that point, I don't know that it would make that big of a difference versus just doing it at our regular board meeting in December.
Right. I guess my only thing about doing it at our board meeting in December is that this could take up a lot of time. I'm hoping it doesn't. I'm hoping it'll be straightforward, but it could take up a lot of time, and then we wouldn't get to the rest of our board business. And since we only have one board meeting this month and one next month, we're going to want to make sure that we get to board business. So I might advocate for doing it at a different time.
And that board meeting, just so you all know, is scheduled for the 14th.
Right.
We could do the week prior. The other benefit of doing it in a separate meeting, if need be, is that then that person would be available. I mean, we could
for the 14th.
For the 14th, if they were not present. If they're present, we would pull them into the board meeting immediately at that board meeting from that point forward. And I would assume we would do this at the beginning of our agenda. But if they happen to not be able to be present on the night that we're appointing, that would give us an opportunity to still talk to them and have them come back at the following board meeting in December. But that puts us as doing the, what would it be, the 7th? December 7th timeframe.
So I'm in favor of doing the appointment. Well, and it also, I'm in favor of doing the appointment before the December 14th meeting, and probably that week of the 7th. That also gives us some flexibility in case we do run into a tie and we can't decide that night. Again, hoping that won't be the case. And you know, from my perspective, it doesn't necessarily have to be on the 7th. It could be anytime that week. But working backwards, whatever date we do decide to do the appointment, I would like a full week at least to be able to review the letters.
Okay, so I was just looking at the calendar, and basically we would be if we posted Monday of next week, or even Tuesday, Monday and Tuesday would put our 20-day calendar days falling on the weekend of the 28th and 29th. So basically, I would say our deadline to turn in those letters would be December 1st. Actually, sorry, November 30th. November 30th, the Monday.
Yeah.
So November 30th, that gives us that week. And then the meeting would be the following Monday, or we could do a Wednesday night meeting instead of a Monday meeting. There's nothing that says we have to do the meeting on a Monday night. But if we wanted to give ourselves a full week before the next meeting to be able to reach out to anyone.
There's also like December where like every night has something going on. Like,
yeah,
December is packed.
Yeah, always for everybody.
Yeah.
So I mean, November 30th would be the earliest I think that we could commit to having them be submitted. And that gives us that week if we want to try to do the 7th.
Let's shoot for that.
Okay.
Yeah. So
we'll need to make sure we make that work, because we'll have to post those dates. I mean, if we're gonna acknowledge that those are our dates, we probably shouldn't change them
right
along the way, and we'll be posting those dates in our information for what our process is, and timelines to submit a letter of interest.
Does anybody have preferences then about when we do the meeting to appoint the week of the 7th?
No, any of those days, 7th, 8th, 9th would be fine.
I'm pretty open.
I am as well.
I think I'd just assume get it done on that Monday if possible, so that on the 7th, so that we have a full week in between meetings. So we're not dealing with a Wednesday and then a Monday. And then plus, if the person happens to not be present and we have to plan for having them at the next meeting be sworn in instead of being sworn in that evening, on the 7th, if they need to be sworn in at the meeting on the 14th, we'll need to add that to the agenda and make sure we have all those updates out too. So real quick, I want to ask Lisa and Melissa, do you guys have any thoughts that are concerning to you about the process or that you would want to add?
I think I would recommend that we have the letters be due the evening of the 29th. So that would give Chris the day of the 30th to work with the letters and get those out to you Tuesday morning, the 1st, so that she has some work time with those applications. And then I just think, since we're going to be adding a special session, meeting of the board, we will need to add that to your calendar. You'll need to vote on that when we meet this month, which is fine, just as an add. And I think we just need to be thinking about what will be discussed in the, I hear what Director Aganaga is talking about, and I hear what Director Ward is saying as well about kind of having a long meeting. And I think just be cognizant of how will this be different than this process, be different than the last process. So the last process, the board really did go into in-depth conversation around responses. And my understanding from how you've described it, but I want to make sure that I understand because Director Larry is not here tonight. I want to be able to guide him as he guides you. Is that really all of that reflection is going to be your own unto yourself, where you're looking into what you discussed tonight later as far as the values and skills and background that you're looking for in a board member. But that there is not going to be the same sort of extensive discussion where two different application letters, for example, would be compared to each other, or where there would be a long conversation. So just wanted to clarify if I'm understanding that right, so that he can help facilitate that.
Yep, I think you have it right.
Okay, thanks.
So Kim, the only date in that week is the Wednesday. I can't do. I can move everything else around, but Wednesday's pretty set.
Okay.
So the 9th.
And Melissa, you mentioned the evening of the 29th to have them ready, but did you mean the evening of the 30th? So the 29th is a Sunday. So
right. So what I meant is that those letters should be submitted to the board secretary, Chris Green, by the evening of the 29th. So in the morning when she arrives on Monday, she can begin assembling them and getting them routed out to all of you, so that you have an overnight to, so that you have, she needs a day to do that work. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that'll be Monday the 30th.
Yeah.
And we can expect to have them either late that day or early the next morning.
Right.
Okay. And that, for that to be our deadline, the 29th, the evening of the 29th, we would have to have it posted Monday or Tuesday. We could post it by Tuesday and still be meeting that time frame, it looks like. Okay.
Okay.
So it sounds like we've got our timeline, and we'll capture
our
that.
Last budget committee member went really well. Like how we did that process, that went really well. And it was the same thing, like you raise a motion for somebody and it was yes or no. And yeah.
Like I said, I think if it was a longer duration of time for the appointment, and it was a majority of the term to be filled, but we're talking, at most 5 months or 6 months of a 4-year term. It's a little hard to justify letting that go to, a month or two before we can get a person in the position, and then only have 3 months left to work with somebody. So I think this will be a quicker process for sure. So based on that, it sounds like we're good to go with the process, with the dates. So my next question would just be, what kinds of attributes and things would we potentially want to be considering? And these are more for our own sake of, as we're looking these over, reading things, and what we feel like as a board is important to us as a board, of somebody coming in at this point in time. for what we have on our plates right now, what the current board member dynamics are, and the fact that it's a shorter period of time potentially could be an opportunity for somebody to learn. What kinds of things would you guys like to consider? And these don't have to be things that are like gonna create a situation where somebody won't qualify or will qualify in our minds. They're just typically things that we would be
Right.
interested in looking for, or that we would love to see applicants have. So does somebody want to start?
Yeah. Well, in a perfect world, someone who has kind of been up, and it doesn't have to be the board itself, but the district generally, and kind of what the board maybe has some notion of. Last year we talked a lot about our strategic plan, kind of being able to talk about where we're headed in kind of a big picture way. There's a few people who follow our discussions, and if you could kind of speak to that, that would go a long way to me. If you and like I said, that's a perfect world. I don't think there are many people like that, but if you came in and said, I'm kind of prepared on the wavelength you have been on, that would be great.
Right. So kind of knowledge of the board, knowledge of the district.
Knowledge of the board, yeah. Knowledge of the district, or trends in education in general, or a district in general. Maybe someone has some experience in a different district. I don't know, something like that. Just kind of being able to talk knowledgeably about the issues. We kind of just jump right in a way.
Yep.
But so that'd be perfect. I don't expect that. Sure. That would be perfect. Sure.
I think this is along what Michael was saying. So just experience with the district in some ways,
sure.
Whether that's been budget committee, or maybe involvement on other committees or PTCs or parent forums that we've had. Some sort of prior involvement or engagement is helpful.
And when you say that, would you be specifically more with our district or with any school district, or either or?
With ours.
Okay. Eric, did you have something?
Well, I'm going to quote Director Ward and say, I would like somebody that is not in the district. When we were talking about budget committee appointees before, and we want to bring someone from the outside to bring more perspective to the board and be able to think differently. But we're losing a great resource with Pat, and with the business side of it, is a very analytical mind, and how he can think, and how a business runs. And a business isn't ran like a government entity at all. Like there are two different things, but also someone who has strong community connections, someone who has strong business connections. Why our job is to evaluate the superintendent, it's also to be ambassadors and advocates. And so that's what I'm really looking for, is an ambassador and an advocate. Somebody in the community. There's a few out there. Yeah, and honestly, I don't have anybody in mind. So
I just wanted to clarify, when you said somebody outside of the district, you're saying maybe with experience outside of the district. Obviously, they have to be within the district to qualify, but maybe they have experience from a different area, right? So I just want to clarify that. But also, so I have, familiarity with the community, business experience, is an advocate or ambassador, those types of things as part of our list. Okay.
I agree with the community connections. I'd also love to see a candidate who represents a portion of our district that is either not represented on the board already, or is underrepresented within the community. And so maybe that's geographic, maybe that's racial or cultural, maybe that, the four of us all currently have children in school right now. So, maybe it's an older member of our community, or maybe a younger member of our community who hasn't had, children go through the system yet. Any of those things.
So someone that would fill in
represented already being brought.
I would add maybe like supervision, management, leadership skills, those types of things I think sometimes come in handy when they have that experience, just from the perspective of what we're dealing with as and or I guess board, other board positions, things where they've had to be in the process of what public meetings are all about, how policies work.
Yes.
Those types of things. But like that public service knowledge.
Some boardsmanship coming into it.
Agreed.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
What about budget stuff? We had talked about that previously. It's helpful. We've all run into many situations where it's helpful to have a little bit of aspect of budgeting and or financial pieces, because that seems to be with the bonds, with everything else we have going on, kind of that financial slash business. I know we talked about business experience, but specifically along with that, if somebody had some budget background, those types of things, it can be helpful. These are all things that, like you said, you're probably not going to find somebody that has all of these. They're all things for us to consider. And what might be more important to me might look different than it does for Jen or Eric or Michael. And but they're all things that we should kind of have a list of, any of these things. We also can go through and somewhat prioritize these as well. Like if you had somebody that had, these are our top 3 or 4, these are the next set, these are the following set. Because if somebody checks that kind of first couple things that were really important to us, that's going to be the highest priority over the other things. And we can talk about that once we kind of have the list going. This is hard because I feel like we would be doing this like on a whiteboard or something and have our list. I'm making the list, but it's hard for you all to see. So we'll have to share that as we go. Any other thoughts about ideas? I know we have a lot. So Melissa and Lisa, even what you guys know about where we're going as a district and some of our strategic planning things. We all know, what we're looking at there. We have a lot of equity and DIE things that were diversity, DEI, I said that totally wrong. Diversity, equity, inclusion things that we're focused on. We have, the bond needs. We have all kinds of stuff that we're pushing through. Is there anything else that would be important for us to consider an applicant?
I think you guys have named, all of those things that are the big pieces that you've been addressing as a board. I think if someone is expressing interest who is only looking at it for the next 5 or 6 months, right, as a shorter term opportunity, I think that it would be really important for those people to be paying really close attention to a few things, to safety protocols around COVID-19, to really understanding the limitations that schools are in right now as we kind of wait for the community to be able to move forward based on the data. And then I think those pieces around equity and teaching and learning, and the stressors that are on our families and our staff right now during this time period. I mean, those are really, I think, the big meaty issues for the next 6 months. If it's someone who is more interested in having an opportunity for the long haul and kind of talking through that, then a lot of those other pieces that you also mentioned would also be really important as well. I think whoever comes on is going to be really well served because they're going to have 4 experienced board members to partner with on a board. All of you have been through the budget cycle. All of you know what that looks like. All of you have this experience in boardsmanship now, and so I really think that they have a lot of assets that they will be joining, which will look attractive to them. So those would be my priorities.
And for me, I would say somebody who understands and is up to date on the issues facing education. I think that there are some things that are difficult, that are pretty specific to education, and spending a lot of time trying to get somebody just with that basic amount of knowledge to be a really effective board member just seems really tough right now because things are hard. So for me, I think just somebody who has current knowledge on the issues that we're facing in education and who's student-centered, because we have plenty of adults in a system trying to orchestrate a system, and I want somebody with kids, not adults necessarily.
So something Melissa said sparked a question for me, and that was whether we would consider someone with an interest in the long term. So, would it be beneficial to us if we are appointing someone, if we have, letters of interest that come in from people who are looking at running later? Would we be better suited to bring somebody in who's interested in running and interested in this as a long-term commitment over somebody who is just looking for kind of that short term? Now, some of them might be using that as an opportunity to gauge whether they would be interested or not. But would that be something we would consider differently? And you might feel either way, like one is better than the other, but would it be a factor in some capacity?
I kind of feel like that would be a personal decision for each of us, because I wouldn't want to show somebody like an endorsement. Like if they said, hey, I'm in this for the long run, and then we pick that person, it could be judged from another person as like, oh, well, the board's already endorsing them for the run in May. So it could just be smart to keep it personal, but that's just my opinion.
I think that's fine.
I have reservations about bringing that into our decision making at this point too. I think the best scenario, obviously, is that we're able to appoint a really great board member who loves doing board work and wants to run in the spring and wins, right? But there are so many ifs and but like, and they could say, yes, I'm interested in the long term, and then do our work for 6 months and say, maybe not. They could say, nope, I'm only in for the end, and then love our board work and decide to run. They could decide to run and then lose.
Right.
I just think there are too many ifs between now and the spring election for us to weigh that in our decision now. And we just really need to, of the applicants that will end up before us, pick the best person that we can to serve the board and the district now, and hope that they love it and that they run and that they get elected in the spring.
I wish we could portray how hard it is right now. It's, you ride a bull for an 8-second ride, and this has been an 8-month ride. I mean, it's just one thing over another. Poor Melissa is just, you have to be exhausted. So
Jen and I are laughing because it hasn't only been 8 months. It's been almost 3.5 years.
Right. No, it is. It's tough though. I mean, just and stuff you never thought would happen in your lifetime is happening. And so it's not just, the good old days of student all-stars and approving policy. Like there's a lot of content, you guys.
Those were the good old days, Eric. You were totally right.
That just made me laugh so hard. I'm glad I had my mic off because it was a very loud, like horse laugh. It's true. Like, God, back in the days of student also, remember? Yeah, those are so great.
I think I was having a conversation today, as a matter of fact, about the fact that I don't know that I could name a superintendent anywhere right now, or district staff or teachers or board members or families or anybody right now that would say this has not been draining in every capacity and not what anybody signed up to do. And, you know, it's tough. And it's not got an end in sight that's, you know, back to normal for any of us, to be honest with you, for a while, I would assume. So,
right. And so
we might be scaring off any potential who are watching this.
Well, that's true. Maybe we should have them watching.
We should not convey how hard it is, or we'll have no
gotta keep it down a little bit.
Stuck with all the work.
And that said, that there's all the other, you know, benefits, important things. I mean,
sure.
It is, it's very rewarding in lots of ways too. And it's been, you know, one of those things that I think is so necessary, that we have people that are willing to care, like you said, that student-centric dynamic and the teacher-centric and the staff-centric especially. And that doesn't mean that it also doesn't include families and community, but it's education, and our kids are the one thing that tie us all together as a community, right? For the most part. So it is a big, it is a big shoes. They're big shoes to fill. They're important shoes to fill. They're tough shoes to fill, but rewarding and necessary too. So the right people are out there. They really are.
And I mean,
I'm sure.
Is that there would be members of our community that, I mean, we as a district, like all districts, are in crisis right now. I mean, this is a really tough time, and I would love for members of our community to say, you know, I am here to help. You know, I'm here to support the district in this unprecedented time of need. That'd be great.
Yeah, it would, for sure. Okay, so we have kind of a list of attributes. After talking through those, I can run through them again, or are there any that you feel like jump to the very top of like kind of most important aspects for you? Let's like each person kind of maybe pick the one that they feel like was the most important to them of what we've discussed. Do you want me to go through them again, or do you guys feel like you know what's there?
Well, no, I think Lisa restated kind of what I thought. You know, just knowing current issues in education and being able to kind of jump right in with a good grasp on those things that are facing us, and she added with a student focus. I think that's my main one.
Eric, what about for you?
I'm going to do two: community partnerships and that upper level management that you were talking about, that director of something.
Okay. Supervision management director. Okay. And you're leaning more on the side of like that supervision management leadership aspect versus the boardsmanship and public service side specifically.
Yeah, the first part. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about Jen?
So I would just take my priorities probably from what Lisa said, just about the immediate need, especially for a short-term position, would be COVID and other education-related issues. And then also, well, they go together, our work with equity and what I said earlier about representation from underrepresented communities.
I do think we have, and I was going to mention for me, the underrepresented needs in whatever capacity that is, as us as a board, the four of us know kind of what our strengths and challenges are each.
Right.
We've been working together long enough to know what those look like, and what would someone coming in bring that maybe the rest of us don't have a little bit of or an experience in. And until I see that in someone's, you know, letter of interest or those types of things, I don't know that I would know that, but I would be definitely looking for somebody that has something that is unique to us in some capacity. And so for me, it would be that kind of underrepresented need, whether it's for the district as a whole or for us as a board or whatever, that I think would be a key factor. So that gives us like 4 or 5 things that we can kind of merge to the top of our list, and then we'll put the other things together. One of the questions I have for the group is, I mean, obviously it's, you know, recorded in this session too, but whatever we land on with this that we send out of the attributes we're looking for, when you get those individual letters to review, do we want to make this list a public list that goes out with the letter of interest, kind of the things that we're looking for, or do we just want to know that those are the things that we would be looking at? They're not the only things, obviously, either. There may be things that pop up that we haven't put on here. These are just things that we know typically are important to the board and to the school district. But they are not necessarily a have to have. They're not a must have. They're not a, you know, you have to have so many. If we're appointing, it really isn't. And I only hesitate about putting it out there because I don't necessarily want people's letters of interest to try to focus on telling us how they meet these.
Right.
I just want to hear from you why you're interested. Like seriously, just what interests you about this opportunity, without feeling like they have to meet certain criteria, because we could decide to appoint somebody or nominate somebody that has only one of these just because of, you know, how their letter of interest struck us, you know, and what they're interested in. So I want to know what your guys' thoughts are. And then also, I guess, because I don't know that I know for sure what we should do per se in that situation, if we have an obligation to putting that out, or if that's something we can just kind of put on our back burner of what we typically are looking for. So any thoughts on that?
So I agree with you. I'm not particularly in favor of publishing it because I don't want the letters of interest to be tailored or geared toward that list. What I would like to have some discussion about is what we ask for in that letter of interest, because I think that's important, and I think what we ask for can help bring some of those things, some of these aspects that we're interested in forward.
Yeah, and that is next on our list to do real quick. So, right.
Yeah, real quick. I know I've taken notes of what was listed, and I'm prepared to keep that with me as I get the letters, and I'm committing to kind of having that in front of my mind as I go through them. So, but beyond that, yeah, I could just see people trying to work their letter to fit into that what we've outlined, and I don't want that.
I also don't think these would be a surprise to anybody. I mean, these are things that anybody
pretty straightforward, yeah,
who knows kind of, you know, yes, obviously if I have knowledge of the district and some of those types of things that they may speak to that. So I don't think it would be anything we wouldn't see anyway. I think it was just an opportunity for us to kind of ahead of time talk through the types of things we're looking for and what we might consider as we go into reviewing them. So, and Eric, I saw thumbs up, so I'm assuming you're good with it. Okay. Lisa, Melissa, anything on that piece? No? Okay. So I'll write this up just for us to have, and I'll mention the fact that, you know, this is not something we're going to publish, but at the same time, it's just for our own knowledge of kind of what we discussed today, and for minutes or whatnot. And then mention the fact that they don't need, you know, this is not something that needs to be provided for in the letter of interest, but it's just things that we'll be considering as we look to appoint someone. So let's talk about the letter. I debated putting some things in for this. based on the conversation I had with OSBA a little bit, I did not include specifics on this piece, and I kind of went back and forth a little bit on it. I thought about, oh, well, we can ask for certain things. We can kind of ask, like, if you do a cover letter, here's the things we want you to address. I ended up, and I'll just share my personal feelings, I ended up feeling like I was leaning towards leaving it just open and saying, we are asking for your letter of interest for being somebody we would consider appointing to this board position, and it being up to that person to tell us what that includes. Why is it, why are they interested? It'll be their passions, it'll be their you know, their personal kind of opportunity to tell us why they're interested. And I got to thinking about, you know, if you start asking certain questions or putting certain things in, are they going to focus only on those things? And then we have an issue where we're comparing people on how they answer a specific question versus just, I just kind of want to hear from people why they're interested. That's where I landed on it. And that's why I ended up not putting much in here. And I think we could easily say that in our, you know, what we put out to people when we're saying, what are we looking for? I mean, we're looking for it to be your personal, you know, just submission of why you're interested and what you want the board members to consider when they're looking to appoint somebody.
Excuse me, do you have a draft that you're referencing?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, not at all.
Okay.
I was just speaking from my own personal, what has gone through my head about it. And now I will let you guys do the same. So. Michael, I saw your light up, so why don't you go first?
Oh, okay. Oh, no. No, I'm leaning towards the most open-ended and want to hear them giving us their interest, their passion, not trying to do anything to guide them one way or the other. That's my thought. Keep it as vague and, well, not vague, but open-ended, and let them fill in the blanks.
Jen, did you have?
So my concern about a purely what is your interest open-ended letter is that I don't know that it's going to give us any of the information that we've said are important to us. You know, a letter of interest just.
But I mean, I'm basing this. Yeah, I don't want to jump in, but I just the points that we made and we agreed are very are almost, not I would say open-ended, but they're. I mean, how could you not? If you wanted to be on the school board, the idea that you were at a minimum you were a PTA member, or you're involved in your kid's school, or you're a retired teacher, or I just think at a minimum people are going to hit those the kind of things we talked about, because they were I felt like they were pretty wide open. A retired business executive, or previous board work in other ways, or just flat out community minded. Yeah, go ahead.
That's information that I would hope that they provide, but if you're just asking why you're interested, I don't know that there's any guarantee or guidance that they would. I'm not advocating for a very structured
okay.
Letter. I guess, well, there are two questions that I would pose that they don't even necessarily have to answer, but I would say I would maybe phrase it as you may want to consider this. So what do you understand the role of the board to be? And also, what strengths do you feel you bring to the board? Those are
And I was just thinking, Jen, the same thing. It's almost like a things to consider for your letter. And I would even go as to not asking questions, but just saying things to consider. It's like experiences, you know what I mean? I mean, I think we could give a small list of things that would be things that we would want them to consider in their letter. And if we pose it as this letter of interest is what the board is going to review to determine whether or not they want to appoint that person to the board. Now, if we base it on that and we say that at the very beginning, this is what we're using to decide who we should appoint to the board. If you have somebody that just fills out a, well, I'm interested for this reason, and they don't give us anything, I don't know that's somebody I would want to appoint to the board anyway. But if I have somebody who's actually going to take the time and maybe look into some things, I would tend to think that they probably do know more and are aware of more because they are addressing those things and knowing that that's what we're looking for. But I do think you do run the risk if you don't do something. So we could always do a things to consider in this letter, letting us know your experiences with these types of things, or letting us know why it's important to you to be part of the board. Or, you know, we can give them some examples of things to consider that they could put into that letter without directing it to answer a question, so to speak. Because I think if we ask a question, they're going to answer the questions and maybe not necessarily provide us that personal part of, you know, why they're interested. And I think we could come up with those pretty easily.
I agree. That would be
yeah.
fun.
That's fine. Yeah.
But I do agree. We run the risk of, if we don't do something additional, having very basic, well, I'm interested and you should consider me kind of a thing with no meat to it for us to consider. Yeah, I would hope not, but yes, we might. Eric, did you have some thoughts?
It's just kind of a slippery slope, is we either ask them questions or we don't. Like, I want to personally, I want to see them do their homework. Like, you can Google, you know, what does a school member do? You know, we set visions and goals. We adopt policy, set direction. I mean, and you can address your letter to knock out all those bullet points and then talk about yourself. But I hate to leave it so open-ended that we're going to get 3 sentences of, I want to open schools back up. But I also want somebody to do their homework and really show their investment. So it's catch-22.
So maybe something that's kind of hits the middle of what you all are talking about. I like the idea of kind of the list rather than asking the question. So maybe just, you know, share with us why you would be the best selection for this appointment as school board member, including things such as your skills and experiences and those your areas of focus in your, you know, whatever that third or fourth thing could be, but maybe just like 3 or 4 pieces, skills, experiences, and then 1 or 2 additional things to help guide them.
So they could submit a letter of interest and please include those things and a resume, and together that could answer some of the questions. I don't know.
I will say that based on the conversation I had with OSBA, they said if you're going with a letter of interest, steer away from having any kind of resumes or applications. Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. I totally understand where you're coming from, and it's a normal thing for us to think of. But in this situation, they were like, you don't want anything else that's going to determine, like, you know, if they want to talk about their level of education, then they can. If they want to talk about some of those things, but it's not that you have then something you're having to compare apples and oranges and whatnot, because then you start getting into the a little bit different scenario of evaluation, I guess, so to speak. So, but you're right in that we've put on here that if somebody has that supervision and management or experience or things like that they mention in their letter, those are things we would obviously consider and would be important to us, but not that they're necessary, right, for us to look at. Yeah.
A letter of interest that just includes some of those
It's a little
things.
different. It is a little different. Yeah. So how about this? I can make an attempt based on what we've said here at writing up what would be what gets posted for asking for these letters of interest, and what we just talked about as far as, you know, we are looking to fill this position. We're going to give a little bit of information about the position and what's remaining in the term and that sort of stuff so they understand. And then that the board is looking for letters of interest to be submitted, that those letters of interest are what we will use to select the best or to appoint the best applicant or best, I don't even want to use the term applicant, I'll have to think about this, to make the best selection for our appointment based on skills, experience, and we can kind of list a few things there. I can try to write something up, and I'm guessing, is that something we can have Chris send out?
Yeah, so the way the process needs to go in order for it not to be a meeting that's the chained meeting is really the board just needs to say, Kim, I think you've got enough information, and then to go ahead, give it to Chris, what you want her to send out. Chris will send that out to board members, and it's more like a informing the board members of here's what went out rather than continue drafting. So
okay. Normally
So-
I would have said we could draft it. I mean, like if we were together, I would say let's start drafting and putting it together. It's hard when we're virtually trying to do the verbiage, but.
Well, Andrew emailed a draft posting this afternoon. So it shouldn't be too hard to. So Kim, will you, I guess, Kim, would you be working with Andrew then to just finalize that based on our discussion tonight?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I would just trust I mean, you see the focus that the board is going. I mean, I would just trust what you and Andrew develop. And
Okay.
Yes, I agree.
If there's other thoughts to it that you think about between, now and whatever, just shoot those off to Chris maybe or something, and she can forward them to me, and I'll include it if there's something you go, I should have mentioned this to include. All right. Well, that gives me a little bit of work for the weekend. Tomorrow and the weekend.
You're welcome.
I know, right? It's all good. So is there anything else about this we want to discuss tonight? Are we good to just move it forward? We've got our dates. We've got.
Yeah, sounds good.
Process. Okay.
so I have one thing, and it's kind of for Melissa and Lisa, but I really appreciate the hand washing the mask video. I think that went over great. Haters are gonna hate sometimes, and it's how it is. Do you think you would be interested in doing a mental health one? Because we all follow the GAPS page, and sometimes I'm worried. Like I'm honestly like worried when you see some of the stories, but and I think staff is doing a really good job reaching out, but just to let them know, like, hey, we really, really are still here to help.
yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I think we can do that with our counselors. Anna Harriman has actually sent out some really great videos as well. We were lucky since we all last spoke. Lynn County picked up the full tab for that PSA. So I just want to thank the commissioners and Lynn County and just say thank you so much for doing that for all of the school districts in the area. It just means a lot, and definitely allows us to do other things, such as another opportunity around mental health. So certainly we can look at how we can make that happen.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, you guys kicked it out of the park. I'm like, just keep playing ball.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think we have what we need for tonight. Is Andrew going to be working tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I am working full time tomorrow too and have other things going on. But between, I guess today's Wednesday, right? I'm so out of whack. Yeah. So tomorrow and Friday, is there both days? Okay. I will work on some things from my end, and then I'll try to just reach out to him directly and send some of this information his way and see what his thoughts are, and if we can coordinate putting stuff together for that.
I think that's good. He did send you a draft today that went out to you guys as board members, and I think it's going to sound pretty similar to what you guys ended up talking through and getting to yourselves. So it may be, Kim, that you don't find yourself, or Chair Batsner, that you don't find yourself needing to write too much. So I wouldn't put too much into the writing until you read what he's written, and maybe you're just going to need to edit.
Perfect. I will do that. Yeah, I'll pull what he sent for sure. So basically, we will do that to get the posting out, so to speak. We'll put these attributes together that we discussed just for our own documentation and records, and then we'll clean up the process piece a little bit so we can make sure that that's included so people understand what the process is going to be and what our timelines are, because we didn't have the timelines added in here. We'll add the timelines in, and then the only other thing I'll be waiting for the process is whether or not we can do one or more names in a motion before we vote. So I will get clarification on that, and then I think we'll have everything we need for information that needs to go out. Awesome. Well,
thank you so much.
In an hour. We almost made it an hour. Not quite.
It's less than 2, and that's always a win.
It was good. Yes, yes.
Very
All
good.
right.
Very good.
So I will go ahead, and if there's nothing else, I will adjourn our work session at 7:48 p.m.
Very good. Thanks.
All right, you guys. Thank you.